Hello, everybody. Welcome to Haiku Talk. I'm your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. And today we're going to be taking a look at a piece from the current issue of Blithe Spirit. This is a poem from Keith Evetts with the first line of Dead of Night. Now, with that said, you all know what time it is. It's time to sit back, relax, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's haiku. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to be with you again for another episode of Haiku Talk. It is a rainy day here in St. Louis, and so you might hear some pitter-patter of rain on the roof, and we'll see if it intensifies during the course of this taping. If so, that's just the way it's going to work. Now, we've got a nice piece here by Keith Evetts, again from the latest issue of Blithe Spirit, and this is an urban haiku. A truly urban or suburban haiku. And it's one that is not necessarily comforting. And I'm excited when I come across these because I do live in a city and I do write from the city. And sometimes it's challenging to write urban haiku that are going to be broadly approachable or accessible to a wide audience. And I think this one accomplishes this because I think we all understand what's happening. It's painted with a very clear paintbrush, but yet still has some mystery around it, so it's not too finely focused. So let's take a look at the poem, and then we'll go from there. The poem goes like this. Dead of night. The police helicopter circles a third time. Dead of night. The police helicopter circles a third time. See what I mean? Definitely urban and suburban. You're not going to see this out in the rural areas. You're not going to see this if you're on a mountaintop. You're not going to see this if you're hiking in the woods or biking along a desert road or, out in a lake or a pond or observing herons or anything like that. This is something that's urban or suburban, where there's a lot of concrete, where there's a dense population of people, where there is a need that if you're tracking a criminal or tracking a stolen car or tracking an Amber or tracking some sort of crime, that you would have a police department with a helicopter that's going to search the city grid for that offending person or car or whatnot. And I've definitely experienced this a couple times, more than a couple times actually, seeing the city, that police helicopter circling the night sky. It's usually has a bright beam. Well, first of all, it circles, and it's definitely, when you see a helicopter circling like that in the dead of night, it's usually a police helicopter. It's not a news helicopter, because if there's usually one news helicopter, there's more than one, because you generally have more than one network channel covering things in your facility, in your city. So this is a lone police helicopter. It's circling. And the fact that it's circling its third time means they're close to somebody. They're close to whoever it is they're looking for. They got a good lead, and they've narrowed down that window of where this person is. And what's not explicitly pointed out in here is that we don't see, or we're not shown the big bright spotlight that the police helicopter will shine down on the ground. That, to me, means that they probably haven't found that person or car or thing yet, but they are close because they have now circled 3 times to kind of, close the net around this whatever's happening. And when I said that it's still a little mysterious, it doesn't paint this picture too, finely a brush, is that we don't know what the problem is. We don't know who they're looking for, what the problem, what the crime, what the scenario is. That's left up to our imagination. And likely in the middle of the night, as this is, in the dead of night, If you're awoken or noticing the helicopters, you probably don't really know what's going on either. You just know something shady's happening, and the police are on the case. And it's unsettling on one hand because you know something shady's going down. There's another part of you, or me anyway, that's kind of happy that the authorities are on it. And that's when, whether or not you trust or distrust the police, when bad things happen, you want to be able to call them and you want them to do something. And in this case, action is happening, and they are on pursuit of something, that somebody that's done something against the law. And so let's break this down line by line. First of all, it does follow the fragment and phrase format, with the first line being the fragment of Dead of Night, and the phrase being lines 2 and 3, the police helicopter circles a third time. And those things, again, by themselves, are interesting lines, interesting pieces of information, but it's the juxtaposition of those two things together that make the moment come alive, that make the moment pop. And this is the thing that your haiku need to do, is have those images juxtaposed together and vibrate. In this case, we have a visceral vibration of the sound of the helicopter and the feeling of that sound, because depending on how close you are, you don't just hear it, but you can also sometimes feel it. And so let's break this down line by line. That first line, Dead of Night. Dead of Night. It is very poignant. You know exactly what time of night it is. And the fact that it's using Dead of Night, it's a pretty brunt force of this is really dark. And it is, there's nothing going on. It's the dead of night. And dead is ominous. It's a good word choice, especially for things that follow. Now, when you're first encountering the poem, you don't know what the phrase is going to be, what lines 2 and 3 are going to be, but dead of night sets you up nicely for something most likely not good that's going to follow. It could go into sci-fi or horror land and be like a zombie poem or a vampire poem or something strange like that. Or in this case, it takes us into a very urban, tense moment. So we go to line 2 and we have the police helicopter. The police helicopter. Oof. So now you have the dead of night and then the police helicopter. And yeah, something's not going on. Something's not right. Something is afoot. And I like that it kind of, the tone that it sets, the mood that it sets, because it's very cinematic. Dead of Night and the police helicopter. You immediately go to image, like those two coupled together, vibrating off each other. Immediately your head conjures up all sorts of images that you might have seen in the news, images that you've seen on TV or television shows, movies, or just real life experience. But you go someplace visual, and it's something that I think that even if you live in a rural environment, even if you live in some place that doesn't have a lot of people, you're going to know what that looks like, because we've seen it or read it or experienced it 100 times in different kinds of fiction and media. Now we get to that third line, and this is the one that really intensifies this moment. Circles a third time. Circles a third time. Wow. That really, really just intensifies what's going on. So you have that slow build from that first line with the first word being dead. Then you have a police helicopter, and now you know this police helicopter in the dead of night is circling your location a third time. That's just, if circling once, that's kind of creepy, but it circles once and then it goes away. It moves on. Circles twice, well, they think they know something's going on here, but a third time, when a police helicopter circles a third time, man, it's going down. Something's happening, and they know, and they're closing in on somebody, something. And I wouldn't be surprised if right after that third time, that big beam of light pierces that dead of night sky, going through the neighborhoods, illuminating backyards and alleys and streets, and they're trying to find something, and then pretty soon the sirens are going to start blaring, and you're going to that manhunt or whatever it is they're doing is going to go into full force. But this is a beautiful poem in a number of ways. One, just to show how through those 3 lines you build tension. You build by adding more details, and just enough details and just the right details. Like that first line, it's night, and the choice to use the word and kind of the phrase, actually, the saying "dead of night," is perfect for what this moment is. You can describe the night in many ways. Many ways, but this is the perfect line for this poem, dead of night. Then you add the intensity of the police helicopter and then circles a third time, and man, now you're left in that moment. You're left at the outset of that third line in the moment of that third circle of the police helicopter, which leads you to know that you've also experienced the first and the second. The first might have woken you up from sleep because it's the dead of night. And then if you're a curious person like myself or like a lot of people, you kind of poke your nose out the window. You want to see what's going on. You want to know what's going on with this helicopter. And then it circles twice, and then it's now circled a third time. And that's where you're left, in that drama of that moment. And I think one of the lessons here and something to think about is when you are, where does your poem leave the reader? And what are they left with? And if you would start this off like the police helicopter circles the third time, dead of night, and you're leaving them in the dead of night, they're left in a kind of ambiguous state. Are they the one being circled or hunted? What's going on? Which is a very different moment. But the fact that it starts in the night, it starts and it gives you a focal point. It gives you a sense of where you are, a sense of place. And then it builds on that by adding more and more intensity to leave you in the state of the third pass of the police helicopter. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to leave your reader in this moment, because they know exactly what's going on. They know the time of the day, and they know where they are, and it's vague enough to allow them to place themselves in that scene. Are they looking out the window? Did they walk out in their yard? Did they, how are they experiencing this third pass? Are they laying in bed and hearing this thing pass? That gives the reader a lot of flexibility to build their own story, the narrative in their heads. But it leaves them in the perfect spot for them to figure out what happens next. So very well done, Keith Evetts. A really nice urban haiku. And also it's a one that helps illustrate that haiku don't have to necessarily be peaceful. They don't necessarily have to be like a Zen-like thing. They just have to put you in a moment, capture a moment really, really well, and allow you to complete the story of the moment yourself as a reader. And so that can be, such as the case here, kind of dark and intense, and this could be very triggering to some people. It could get your heart rate up. It could, your pulse might increase when you read this poem because you've experienced this before, or it's just building up of attention, and it's very well done. So keep that in mind. You can write wherever you are, wherever you're living in the world. I live in the city, so writing city poems, urban poems, definitely is something that's in my wheelhouse, something in my toolbox, because that's where I am. And so, just because you live in a city or a suburb doesn't mean you have to try to take yourself out of where you are to go find the places that seem like they're more haiku friendly. Nope. Haiku moments happen wherever you are, regardless of the setting. And just be mindful, be open, and be willing to embrace them. And once they get you, think about editing, how to build tension, how to make those two images vibrate next to one another. And I'd say also remember where you're leaving your reader at the end of the poem, because that's very important. You want to leave your reader in a spot where the scene makes sense. And that happens here very well in Keith Evetts' poem. So thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Haiku Talk. Again, I'm your host, Ben Ga. This is the Haiku Talk channel. If you've liked this episode, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and do so. And if you subscribe, think about ringing that little bell icon, clicking that little bell icon so you're notified when new episodes arise. And if you have some comments or have some thoughts about the poem, or if this vibrated with you or resonated with you, please leave them. I do read them. And again, Blithe Spirit, tasty beverage. See you next time.